Alright, think we are live. Yeah. So, free agency definitely got a lot of fun things to do. Welcome in if you are watching. I really appreciate it. It's going to be a first live stream, so good experiment with some things, still working out the, basic things of live streaming, but I'm really looking forward to this. I think there's a lot of things that Andrew Berry in We Trust can do, elevate this team, really make that Super Bowl push that I'm really, big on them doing. We're in this window right now. Baker has his 4th year of his rookie contract, and then he has that 5th-year option coming up, and that's your Super Bowl window. That's your Browns Super Bowl window. We've seen that with Jared Goff. Of course, his extension didn't go well. You got to maximize this Super Bowl window. I think that's what we're going to see happen. So a couple things that have happened before, we started this stream. Shaquille Barrett got signed to a whopping 4 years and $72 million deal. Honestly, I'm pretty glad that was not available to the Browns. I just don't see the benefit of paying Shaquille Barrett $72 million. It's just too much. I love Shaquille Barrett, I really do. I think that he's a talented edge rusher. But in terms of, he's had a lot of help around him. You've got Vita Vea, Jason Pierre-Paul, of course, Ndamukong Suh. I mean, you've had guys around him that have really elevated him. He just signed a league minimum deal just 2 years ago out from Denver. He left Denver, came to the Bucs, played well, got the franchise tag, led the league in sacks last year, and now he's making quite a lot of money. So as much as I do love him, I really think that he's a great edge rusher. I'm just not sure if he's the way to go. And I'm glad that he's off the table, because I just think that as much as it's tough, because I really think the Browns need a dynamic edge rusher. We're talking like we need some guy like Carl Lawson or even a Bud Dupree, just a marquee name, because that's how you win in the NFL with pass rush. It's just how you win. And I really think that Shaquille Barrett could have been a great option. But again, I don't want to just keep talking about it forever, because it is a big signing in the league, but I don't know, just not my type. Also, Romeo Okwara out of the Lions, Detroit Lions, he got signed as well. So it's a lot of money too. 3 years, $39 million, $13 million a year for a guy that really only played pretty well for last year for the Detroit Lions. Had a pretty good year. He's really an excellent pass rusher, more of a technician. He kind of off the grid and really emerged to this year in that miserable Detroit defense. So we'll see. I mean, we're seeing a lot of teams now overpay for edge rushers now. You've got Shaquille Barrett making $18 million a year, and then you have Romeo Okwara making $13 million a year. We'll see what it brings. We will, because you've got a guy like Carl Lawson, who's probably going to end up costing about $15 million a year. $16 million. It's a lot of money. So, and you also have to consider that you're paying Garrett $25 million a year. So that's a lot of money to invest in the edge room. It really is. So, yeah, a lot of guys available. We'll see where the Browns go. But really, other than that, no big news so far. You've got Romeo Okwara, Shaquille Barrett, and Pat Elflein signed with the Panthers, former Jet, 3 years, $13.5 million deal. Now, honestly, I find that to be too exorbitant. I really have no clue what the Panthers are doing there. That is a ton of money. That is a ton of money. Yikes. So you've got $4 million a year, $4.5 million for Pat Elflein, who really didn't play terribly well. I think that he's kind of been a lost cause there for the Jets. And I mean, I know the Jets have had a miserable offensive line and miserable offense under Adam Gase. But that is still a boatload of money to be paying to a guy that honestly just isn't that good. I really don't know what the Panthers are doing there. They need more athletic linemen. I don't know if Pat Elflein is really going to give that to them. If I'm being 100% honest, I really don't think so. He's a below average starter at best, and I understand that the guard market this year just isn't quite there. But $4.5 million for Pat Elflein, that's just not a lot. Oh, and I see Marcus Golden back with the Cardinals, 2 years, $9 million. That is also a lot of money. Marcus Golden, he played decently well, I believe. He's kind of buried behind that actually decently talented Cardinals off defensive line, and now of course you've got J.J. Watt there, which is kind of scary. Chandler Jones, who really honestly is kind of overrated. So yeah, 2 years worth $9 million. I assume there's a lot of incentives there. A guy that's 30, so yeah, pass rush is really just flying off the boards. I think Super Bowl has something to do with it there. Wow. So yeah, that is kind of where we're at right now. Go here, Pat Elflein, making $13.5 million. It's a lot of money. And so we'll see what the Browns decide to do. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think the Browns should do. Yeah, it's a good depth sign there for the Cardinals. So, Marcus Golden, I was kind of had my eye on him. He's more of a stand-up edge rusher, 3-4, outside linebacker there. So, not that affected there if you're a Browns fan, but another edge rusher off the board, just limited options. So Kyle Long also hit the free agent market, guard came out of retirement actually. So offensive line is not going to be a big priority for the Browns, but it's important to note the free agency is kind of moving kind of slowly. You have, of course, a lot of re-signings, but I do think that the cap is really a huge part of that because there's $182.5 million. That is a lot less than last year. It was at $198.2 and supposed to go up to in the 200s. And I don't know. I wonder if this has something to do with it, but all reports were indicating that it was just going to be normal for the first wave. I don't think we'll see the Browns sign anyone until like day 2 or 3 in free agency. Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. There are some options there. I do think that I'd have to take a look, but Trey Hendrickson is going off the board. Carl Lawson is definitely also going off. Dupree, probably. I could see Judon slipping to tomorrow or even on day 3 potentially, because he is one of those guys that could be affected by this cap because he would normally make more, but not this time because, again, of that cap issue. But I could definitely see them waiting a little bit. Like you said, could be an option there. I mean, Andrew Berry is pretty smart. We've seen that. So we'll see. I kind of want some news here, but I'd be content, to wait and see how this free agent board really shakes up. Yeah, definitely, I would say my priority, my desire really, is to get a guy to play opposite Myles Garrett. That's I think is the necessary. That's the necessary thing you've got to complete, whether that's through the draft or that's through free agency. You have got to get that sorted out because Myles Garrett was very good, right? But if you noticed, and I talked a little about that in my video about the Browns defense, he really declined from, I would say, about after he got COVID, so about week 13 onwards at the Titans game. His pass rush, his get-off just wasn't there. And I don't know how much to attribute that to COVID or just natural, just maybe he had down few weeks. He just didn't have that explosiveness that you saw in that first half of the year. And I don't know what to attribute that to, but I know that that is a perfect sign that you need another guy. Because Olivier Vernon, he just doesn't offer much upside in pass rushing. He just doesn't. He just doesn't. Why don't you want Judon or Hendrickson? Okay, so Judon, the thing about Judon is the Ravens, they blitz a lot. They blitz, I would say I think the stat was 35% in the league, which is a lot. So you don't see Judon get a lot of true pass sets, which means, getting that one-on-one 5-step drop back where he actually needs to rush the passer. Those play action, those screens, that's what a lot of cleanup passes, a lot of cleanup sacks happen. So he did not have a ton of one-on-one true pass set reps. Hendrickson, I love, but I did his charting. 6 sacks. I mean, I love the guy, but not the player. He had 6 sacks that were true pass reps. The others were coverage sacks or they were cleanup sacks where he got a free blocker. He didn't have to. He wasn't blocked by anybody. Or if you look at that Raiders game, he had 1 sack where Derek Carr held onto the ball for about 10 seconds. I mean, it was ridiculous. So I think there could be a little bit of a buyer beware there. I honestly do. And I think that someone will overpay, like you guys are saying. I see some of you want Trey Hendrickson. And I think that could be an option. I wouldn't be that mad because I do like his physical upside. I really do. I think he has some athleticism. Yeah. So actually there's a report now that the Jets, Browns, and Vikings have shown interest in Saints defensive end Trey Hendrickson. So that is a game changer there. So if the Browns are showing interest, I'm not a huge fan of that. I'll be completely honest. I'm a little worried about that now. So this is a credible source, NFL Trade Rumors, so definitely a credible source. But I don't want to think it is because I really, really don't want Trey Hendrickson. I mean, I really, really don't want him. Trey Hendrickson, again, like I said, that's a 6-sack guy. That's not a guy that really won a lot of his past sets. He was the 3rd edge rusher there for the Saints, and he didn't actually have, like I said, he didn't have a lot of first-team pass true set rushes. Judon or Yannick, again, Ravens edge rushers, I'm just not a huge fan of. Desarius Smith seemed to break the mold, but he was more of that athletic, that had more athleticism to him. Zadarius Smith went to the Packers, really played well. Von Miller, I love that. Nick Howard, yeah, I love that. I love Von Miller and Myles Garrett on the same team. I think that would be deadly. Hendrickson is a big no. Honestly, I really would be opposed to Hendrickson. I think it would be a waste of money. I think that, honestly, it would end up being a mistake. And whoever does pay him, unless they can really develop him, because I think he's still a raw prospect. I do think he is, because those cleanup sacks, those coverage sacks, that's not really a true indicator of your ability to rush the passer. Vic Beasley, a couple of years ago, had, I think, 20 sacks or so. He's not a great player. Vic Beasley had 20 sacks. Sacks are deceiving. They really are. You can't use them as a measure. You can sometimes, but it's not always a good measure of the effectiveness of a pass rusher. So that's why I'm a little concerned about Trey Hendrickson being an option. We got to think cap, because since we had renegotiated out of big deals, yeah, Browns have a lot of big deals coming up. They do. You got Baker, probably you're going to extend. OBJ and Landry cost $30 million against that cap hit. So we'll see. I do think they need to free up some cap. This cap space is not looking great in the future, but now it's fine. Von Miller, defensive end, opposite Miles. 2-year deal, I love that. 2-year deal, probably going to get $13-14 million. He is pretty old. And, I don't know if you guys saw, but Von Miller, he was training with OBJ. He said that there was a report that he had interest in coming. He had interest in coming to the Browns because, again, you are playing against my opposite Myles Garrett. I mean, there's that, right? So, yeah. Yeah, so Jacina Anderson, Jets, Vikings. My understanding is the Jets, Vikings, and Browns have all shown interest in adding Saints defensive end. Trey and Hendrickson, list is in no particular order. I don't know what you guys think of Trey Hendrickson because I'm seeing a lot of mixed messages. I'm seeing a lot of people that like him and a lot of people that are just not a big fan. Yeah. We'll see what happens with Trey Hendrickson. But moving on, I know we've kind of talked a little bit about defensive ends, but there's also the receiver room, and didn't really talk about this a whole lot, but that receiver room needs an upgrade. It does, and as much as it hurts me to say this, I think that you can't keep Jarvis and Higgins because Jarvis Landry is a $14 million cap hit, and then you have Rashard Higgins, who's probably making 6, 7. I don't see him making more than 7 on the open market. You can't keep both of those guys. You just can't. They have similar skill sets. They don't have that elite ability to separate, and ultimately, I don't see their upside. I see it being like the Chiefs and the Ravens games. That's deja vu. Same thing. Receivers can't separate, extremely limited offense. And while you did put up 42 points, you couldn't. That was all on Baker. That was when Baker was perfect. And you can't expect him to be perfect and threading the needle every single play. The Chiefs game, Baker was not perfect, and it didn't go over well. The Browns couldn't run the ball, and they couldn't use that play-action scheme, and their receivers couldn't separate. That's why a guy like Curtis Samuels, I would absolutely love. Vaughn will cost you 2 for $27 million. Hendrickson could be a 2 for 18, maybe 3 for 29ish. Yeah, honestly, I agree with Hendrickson. I could see someone potentially overpaying, but I do think that he isn't as highly regarded as a lot of people think he is. And a lot of people think he is around the league. I think the league. Curtis Samuel likely a done deal with the Pats. Yeah, nice try. That is not happening. What about defensive back to sign? The only reason to keep Landry is because he's more consistent than Higgins and a leader in the receiver room. Yes, that's a great point. I really understand that, and it's just tough because the thing about culture that I think that the Browns have that they have evolved to, a good culture isn't set in stone or really hallmarked by one guy. If you have one guy that keeps the culture together, then you have a problem because that's not a strong culture. A culture it doesn't have to be dependent on one player. That is the sign of a good team culture. Jarvis Landry, I love him. I love what he did for the Browns and really changed that organization. But I think he needs to restructure that deal or add some void years like we've seen a lot of players do. You can't pay him $16 million a year. I just don't think that's a viable way to go about doing business. He's definitely more consistent than Higgins, and he is a leader. So I would love to keep him ideally in a perfect world, but ultimately I don't see them keeping him at this salary for the next 2 years. I could see them, running it back for this year, but then really trying to change their receiver room for next year. And for your defensive backs, yeah, so there are some defensive backs I love the Browns to sign, as I kind of talked about in my free agency preview. You've got Sidney Jones, who I think is very underrated, could be a very cheap addition. Some, at worst, quality depth there. He played pretty well against Davante Adams, so that's all I'm saying. Then you have, Jonnu Smith. He keeps, moving on from OBJ or Landry next year. Stefanski and Fraud and offensive. Yeah, I agree. I could definitely see them having OBJ and Landry next year. I would not be mad. I would not be mad if Landry was cut, because ultimately I think it's the smart move long-term to do. But I would definitely be a little confused as to why they didn't restructure that, because, again, he is a great leader. Defensive back, getting sidetracked. That defensive backfield definitely needs an upgrade. I think you could also use a guy like Michael Davis from the Chargers. We need some athleticism there in that secondary. There's a lot of guys in the draft. There's a lot of guys in the draft that are available. All right, so Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith, you are right. I just saw that. 4 years, $50 million with the Pats. So I do want to react to this one a little bit because this is a big signing. That is a big deal. So Jonnu Smith, I know football in a minute. You're excited about this one. Jonnu Smith, I think, is one of the best tight ends and most underrated in the NFL. And I know we use underrated to an extent where, it's just not underrated anymore. But this guy is underrated. He really is. He has all the tools. He does. He is athletic. He has good hands. He's actually a decent blocker. And I think that he's going to be a steal. And yes, that's a lot of money. 4 years, $50 million. $50 million. So that is 12 and a half, I think, per year. $13 million a year. That is a ton of money. That is a ton of money. I definitely think so. But that is, I don't know. I really don't know about that one. I kind of have mixed feelings about that one. So Jonnu Smith, again, very athletic, solid hands, was great in Tennessee, that scheme. He has the ability to go make those contested catches. I don't know what to say. I mean, he's a great player, but that's a lot of money for a tight end. That is close to George Kittle. So, thing about Jonnu Smith is there is a legitimate argument to say that he potentially was schemed up in Tennessee. He was definitely pretty good. Again, does have that athleticism, but he doesn't necessarily have that elite consistency that you would be looking for to pay that much money to. Because again, you are committing to this guy through 4 years. That's a lot of commitment in this cap-strapped league right now with the COVID issues. So it's great to see the Patriots finally being aggressive, but I don't know if that was the right way to go about that. I don't know. I know that Josh McDaniels likes to use his tight ends. They did draft a bunch of tight ends in 2020 NFL draft, but Jonnu Smith is just class above all that. Devin Asiasi, I don't think you can cut it. But again, Patriots have a ton of cap to spend, and you need to have a guy like that for Cam Newton. Cam Newton, he has that running ability, right? He has that ability to add that extra dimension to the offense, but he's not an elite thrower of the deep ball. He just cannot throw the ball deep. And again, that shoulder injury really hurt him. He was one of the best deep throwers, not one of the best, but had one of the strongest arms in the league, was really a refined passer, honestly. Not so much his accuracy on the deep ball was kind of a little odd there, but it was manageable. But he was a refined passer, I think, in that short to middle of the field. And he still has that. I just don't think that you can throw it very deep. But again, Jonnu Smith, he's not going deep very often. You can send him out, split him out wide. He can play receiver. He can play in the slot. You can ask him to block. I do think he needs to work a little bit on that blocking skills. But he has that upside that you're looking for. I really think that this guy could be an elite tight end. I do think he could, because depending on how the Patriots decide to use him, I'd be interested to see whether they split him out wide more, use him more of an inline blocker. They have to figure out a way to use Cam Newton's strengths. I do think suddenly that's not looking too bad. You've got Cam Newton, that running game with that excellent offensive line, Jonnu Smith, and we'll see what they do at receiver. But I don't know if investing in a receiver long-term would be the best idea. Because, again, Patriots offense with Cam Newton, I don't know. That's just not a great idea. When you can't throw it that deep, maybe look for a guy that, can get it open kind of quicker. I would say Curtis Samuel would fit perfectly, like perfectly. And they have the cap space to do it. So, be interested to see what that happens. Jonnu Smith, I really wanted to talk about that because I think he is pretty criminally underrated. But for at that price tag, not so much. So, again, let me know if any questions you have in the chat. I'm really looking forward to see if the Browns can finally make a move. But we'll see. So, not a whole lot of action so far. Hour in to the legal tampering period. And you've had a couple of guys signed. Cam Irving also got signed 2 years, worth $10 million. Don't want to really talk about that. It's not very interesting. So, we'll see what happens. Dustin Hopkins just got re-signed as well. 2 years, 1 year, $2.46 million. And, yeah, that's where we're at right now. Definitely want to, talk a little bit about what the Browns can do. You have mixed feelings about this? Yeah, I do too. Kind of a hybrid between receiver and tight end. Exactly. A lot of speed, $12.5 million is a lot. Yeah, I agree with that. That's kind of a perfect description of how, my attitude toward this is. But I think it's a fine signing. I mean, it's a great step to finally see. Oh my God, the Patriots making another move. So, Dolphins nose tackle Davon Godchaux of the Dolphins, right? 2 years, $16 million deal. Just reported, $9 million guaranteed. Okay. All right, so now we're getting started. Why are the Patriots? Isn't that so funny that we're really talking about free agency now, and we are reporting deals from the Patriots? Wild world we live in. So, Patriots signing Davon Godchaux. I think that's how you pronounce his name, but I could be wrong. On a 2-year, $16 million deal. So, Davon Godchaux, I don't want to talk a ton about him, and then I proceed to talk a ton about him, but I'm not a huge fan of paying nose tackles. I really am, because nose tackle is an extremely replaceable position. I don't see the upside of paying a nose tackle more than $5 million a year. Because if you look in the draft, Teradell Slayton, that's one guy. He's 350. He's a big guy. And he's going to probably cost a mid to late round pick. Honestly, he's not going to do much less than Davon Godchaux will. Not a huge fan of this deal. I understand they're trying to work out, rebuild that roster. They have a ton of cap space, but I don't get it. Nose tackle, $8 million a year. That's a lot of money for a nose tackle. Yeah. So, Patriots really getting active there, which is really surprising. So, Pats won't go better than 8-8. 9-8, yeah, 9-8. 17-game schedule. Yeah, honestly, I don't want to talk a ton about the Patriots because who likes the Patriots? But at least they're doing something. That's always a good thing. Patriots didn't really do much. Romeo Okwara sticking together. $13 million. No, I don't want that. You can take them. Kind of refreshing. See what offers are released. It's kind of slow. Right now you're thinking about those big names. You got Corey Linsley, Kenny Golladay, Juju Smith-Schuster, Corvette. I really hope he signs with the Ravens. That would be awesome. I really want to see that happen. Just not with the Browns. Yeah, Juju's going to get overpaid. He's just not great. I do like that he has that physical upside in the slot, but again, 15 million, that's just too much. I really want to see where he goes. I want to see where Kenny Golladay goes. So, right now, Jonnu Smith, Davon Godchaux. Kind of sad that the Browns aren't doing anything, as this is a Browns podcast. Curtis Samuel available too. if Curtis Samuel gets signed by the Patriots, I might lose it. That is my free agency crush right there. Is for sure Curtis Samuel. I love him so much. I think he would do so much in this offense. He really would. I really encourage you to watch him. He has that dynamic playmaker ability that I think would just elevate this offense to a new level. And I know that's kind of cliche to say, but I'm still saying it. It would be an extremely, extremely wise move. I don't know how much. I don't care how much you have to pay him. Just as long as it's not over $13 million to $14 million, I'm happy. You have to honestly, if that happens, I think you get rid of Landry. It's hard to say, but I think if you are, I don't think they will get Samuel. But if I was the GM, I'm picking up Curtis Samuel. Need that. I think that's a perfect option. Also, Demetric Felton. I love that guy out of college. I think he went to UCLA, but I'm not positive. Demetric Felton. He's very similar to Curtis Samuel. I just think he doesn't have that instant separation. Yeah, he did. He went to UCLA. He could be a fourth-round pick or so. Which way do the Browns go first? Do they sign defensive side of the ball or offensive side? So, the free agency class is definitely more stacked on the defensive side of the ball. I think that's a fair thing to say. I think you do go defense first. I think we will see defense first. I don't see them getting one of those marquee names. I do think that you can get some of those elite guys, not talking extremely elite, but those above average quality starters. So I'm talking maybe Melvin Ingram, Jarrell Casey I could possibly see, Patrick Peterson, Kyle Van Noy. Those are all guys I would be very interested in getting. You can get a secondary guy like Michael Davis. I really love that. I think he could be an excellent addition there. But in terms of which way to go first, wherever the market has a little bit of a gap or a hole that maybe isn't being, the benefits of that specific position isn't being reaped, because you do want to take advantage of maybe a surplus of a position that maybe doesn't have a ton of need around the league. So edge rush is definitely always a need across the league. Edge rush is always extremely important. You can never have enough good edge rushers. But I would honestly say that corner is not extremely high demand right now in the league. So there's a lot of good corners in this free agent class that I could see the Browns making a move for. And separate from what I was talking about the, what was I talking about? Michael Davis, Sidney Jones. There's also one other guy I really liked. But it'll come back to me. But A.J. Bouye, Patrick Peterson, Malcolm Butler, Casey Hayward, Richard Sherman, Justin Coleman, Janoris Jenkins, Casey Hayward, I think I already said. So there's a lot of guys available that you can get for not crazy expensive. So there's a lot of corners. I would focus on that defensive side on the field. Defensive side of the ball. Because that offense is fine right now. Again, you're spending the 29th most cap on the defensive side of the ball and the second most cap on the offensive side of the ball. So definitely go defense there. Let's see, any new transactions for the Browns? Or really any team. We haven't seen any transactions for the Browns, which is kind of sad. Normally we're pretty active in free agency because of all the cap space we have, but maybe we're going a little bit more conservative. If it's not, we don't get any notifications. May probably react to a film study another time, but definitely I'm going to stick around, see if the Browns decide to make any moves. All right, so Hooper is now the second highest paid tight end out of free agency. $42 million. So Jonnu Smith, would you rather have Jonnu Smith at $50 million or Austin Hooper at $42 million? Definitely Jonnu Smith at $50, because I love Austin Hooper, but if I need to pay $2 million more to get Jonnu Smith, I am, because he's more athletic, better separation, honestly could argue better hands. Austin Hooper, I didn't love the signing from the start. Really just took advantages of bad zone coverage. Never had that elite separation. Honestly, I think you could argue keeping Njoku and Bryant over Austin Hooper. Not ready to have that discussion yet because he is going to be on the roster, but I do think that was a mistake. That was a mistake from... Oh, wait, let's see. Okay, so this is big news right now. Finally, here we go. Former Rams safety John Johnson, Lions, Eagles, Jags, and Browns all showing interest. This is what we needed to see. So John Johnson, I think, would be a great fit in this defense. Joe Woods loves to play three safeties on the field. He loves it. He wants to transition to that dime defense. And I think that John Johnson could definitely open this all up, because what John Johnson is going to do is he is going to be able to help Grant Delpit and as well as Ronnie Harrison play better roles. Ronnie Harrison, which I am going to do a breakdown later because I really understand, I think, why he was so good for the Browns and not great for the Jaguars. Ronnie Harrison was always played as more of a box safety, but he is a true cover safety. So what you can do now is John Johnson, who's excellent in the box, you can bring him down. You can play John Johnson in the box. Now what he can do is he can blitz, he can play the run, and he can also cover guys in the slot, so there's a lot of disguising that you can do there. Then you can play Ronnie Harrison and Grant Delpit as your two high shell safeties. This is exactly what I want the Browns to do, because not only does it help that, first of all, you're adding talent, right? But John Johnson single-handedly affects and elevates the entire defense. Because if you don't have John Johnson, Ronnie Harrison has to play more of that box role, which he's not really suited for, and Grant Delpit has to be that true center high safety, only guy back down there. Grant Delpit can come down to the box a little. Joe Woods would be licking his chops at this, because right now he's thinking of all the disguising he can do there. He can bring guys down to the box because you do have three well-rounded safeties. You can play them at their specific positions. You bring John Johnson down in the box, Ronnie Harrison and Grant Delpit as your true safeties, free safeties, but also rotate Grant Delpit, play a little bit of slot corner. He can be your Isaiah Simmons. I mean, a little different, but you get what I'm saying. He can play all over the place. And this is exactly what Joe Woods wants to do. If this is an option, John Johnson, you need to sign him. John Johnson, I would not pay more than $12 million. That is kind of my hard cap there, because I do think that safety is decently replaceable, but John Johnson, again, has some difference about him. I think that I really like his athleticism is there, his cover instincts are there, and cover instincts and coverage is just something you can't teach. Speed you can't teach, instincts you can't teach. That's what I love about Taki. Taki, he has those instincts. You can see it very clearly. But you can teach a guy to play coverage. You can teach a guy to play better techniques. Some guys are better at it than others, and there is a certain amount. There's a certain limit in how much you can improve. But coverage is one of those things where you can fix that. You can. But athleticism and instincts, you just can't. That's something that you're kind of just born with when you play football. You know, I have not, but I know for a fact that that's something that's just... It's just something you just can't teach. It's really not. You can see it clearly, guys that have instincts and guys that don't. And John Johnson is one of those guys that does. He also has elite, awareness on the field. You can see he's a very smart football player. He understands a lot of defensive coverages, how to play them. He is also great at baiting quarterbacks, really playing with leverage that you don't see a lot of safeties do, and he uses that athleticism to really flip his hips seamlessly, which is exactly what you want in a safety, a guy with fluid hips. So John Johnson, I would absolutely love if the Browns could sign. But other than that, just a rumor there. No, this is a credible source. You got Adam Schefter there. Who else was it? I think it was not. Adam Schefter didn't break it, or Jonathan Jones. So there is some credibility there. But, again, those things aren't always extremely... They're not always crazy. Like, you can't count on them. But it's always fun to talk about. Would be very interesting signing there. But other than that, no big news. John Johnson, interested for the Browns. Browns are interested in him. Then you've got Trey Hendrickson, who also has some interest for the Browns. So, a couple guys that you can sign there. Be interested to see what the Browns do. Make sure to keep those questions coming. Need to fill airtime, right, until the Browns decide to make a move. Come on, help me out, Andrew. This is all over now. Twitter. Browns interested in John Johnson. I'd love him on the Browns. I'd love to see him in a Browns uniform. Wouldn't overpay him, though. I think if you do get into a bidding war with the Jets or the Jaguars, I'd just stay out of that. Because Jaguars, they have a ton of money. They're probably going to be able to overpay everyone. And the Browns just can't afford to go too crazy with the signings. Let's see where we're at now. So we haven't heard anything on Rashard Higgins yet. So we'll see how that's going. No big Browns news. So, no other league news. Again, Davon Godchaux. Pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name. Jonnu Smith, Shaquille Barrett, Romeo Okwara, Pat Elflein, and one other guy I'm forgetting. So, just waiting now. We'll see. Nick Chubb, I mean, that's a topic for another time, but we'll see if he gets extended sometime this offseason. Baker Mayfield, obviously, going to be a huge discussion center point in this offseason. Steelers interested in re-signing Matt Filer, Tyson Alualu, Mike Hilton, and Cameron Sutton. I don't know what they're getting that money with. All right, so now something I do want to talk about that I just thought of is the Ravens signing the former Browns safety lineman, Kevin Zeitler. So Kevin Zeitler, I would say, is a pretty good guard. He was not great last year, but he definitely has that. He definitely has some gas left in the tank. Guards do tend to, offensive linemen in general, tend to kind of decline around that age of 30. But that being said, they're not paying him a whole lot. It's 3 years, $22.5 million, I believe, which is actually would be a solid deal. Ravens signing him, that's actually not bad at all. Just saw it this morning. It was actually just came out earlier. Wow. That's Ravens at it again. Yeah, that's tough. Kevin Zeitler, again, that hurts because he was a former Brown. But, guards do tend to be kind of washed up as they get older. So there is that aspect that you could, feel a little bit better about that. Kevin Zeitler, I do give that an A there because he is a solid guard. He's a very solid guard. We'll be interested to see, though, what the exact structure of the deal is. Because I do think that there's a lot of void years happening where, the void years, I've seen a lot of this with void years, and what this is it's just pushing the cap hit. So, you have Kevin Zeitler right now, who's signing a 3-year, $22.5 million deal. So that's going to have him cap hits through the 2021, 22, 23 seasons, right? Those 3 years he's going to be on the Ravens roster. But what some teams are doing is they're structuring their deals so instead of having $22 million across 3 years, they're going to add 2 void years, for example, and add a $22.5 million cap hit over 5 years. So that way you're only paying $5 million a year, be $4 million a year instead of $7 million a year. And that's really going to help. And of course, obviously, they're structuring, it's not always equal, right? You can structure it so it's only $2 million this year and then like $8 million next year. There's a lot of ways that they restructure it. But again, Kevin Zeitler, that Ravens front office is extremely savvy, which is never a good sign. Steelers front office can't say too too much about that there. They've made some questionable decisions. Of course, Big Ben coming back. Big Ben. I'm excited to sweep him there. Finally beat him in Pittsburgh and in Cleveland. What's actually interesting is Ben Roethlisberger and Baker Mayfield have never dueled in Cleveland before, which is an interesting thing to consider. We'll see it maybe this year, upcoming year. So now, kind of just waiting for some news right now. Not a ton of transactions, which is kind of to be expected. There's not a whole big market right now for a lot of receivers, which is interesting. You've got Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel, Kenny Golladay. Pretty sure there's a lot of guys I'm missing. Juju Smith-Schuster. There's a lot of guys that are going to be signed somehow, sometime. We'll see when that happens. But right now, just waiting to see what the Browns decide to do. Again, Trey Hendrickson, John Johnson. Wouldn't be terribly mad if Trey Hendrickson goes in a Browns uniform. John Johnson I would be ecstatic about. Again, any questions you guys have, please answer them. Ask them. I'd be very willing, to have some discussions. What do you guys think the Browns should do in free agency? Because there's a lot of possibilities right now. There's a lot of things that could happen, that will happen. We'll see. I'd be interested to see what the behind the scenes is for how free agency works. Because it seems like a chaotic process, but it's actually kind of calm right now. Okay, so Juju Smith-Schuster just posted a tweet. No matter what happens this week, if I'm back or if I'm somewhere else, just know that I'll never see Pittsburgh as just 4 years of my life, but a part of who I am. I'll always carry that tough blue-collar spirit for the rest of my life. I love you, Pittsburgh 412. Alright, so it's Team Juju. Okay, let's see what he has to say now besides dancing. Okay, so this was on Instagram, and he did post this from his verified account. So clearly the Steelers are not interested in re-signing him. I think that's a good move for them. I as a Browns fan, I would love if they re-signed him. I really would. I really, really, really would love if they re-signed him. That's just a waste of money. Probably going to have to pay him $15 million a year. Then you've already have Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool. There's a lot of guys there in that receiver room. You'd just be wasting money there. Give us your number 1 to 5 free agency targets that you would like to see the Browns sign that would be good fits both salary-wise and scheme fit. Okay, so this is a great question. So now I'm assuming you're saying that this is going to be a rank of based on also, because I would definitely prefer Trey Hendrickson to Carlos Dunlap, but if the salary obviously has an implication there, so I'm going to assume that also means counting also salary, weighting that. But anyway, so number 1 is Carl Lawson. Carl Lawson is from the Bengals. He's an excellent edge rusher, has all the tools. He has that power rushing ability. He has that ability to convert speed to power, really play on either sides of the defensive end. You can really match and mix that up with Garrett. He has a developed toolbox there as a pass rusher, has all the athleticism in the world. And let's see, so that's number 1 for sure. I don't care how much money you've got to pay him. As long as it's not over $16 million a year, get it done. Number 2. So number two is interesting. This is where you can kind of go in multiple different directions. But I would honestly say Kyle Van Noy. And this is because, look, Kyle Van Noy honestly isn't the most, exciting pick, but I think he would be a good option for the Browns because he's not going to cost a whole lot of money. Dolphins just cut him. Obviously, he's not making double digits a year. Didn't really play well. He was being outplayed by Andrew Van Ginkel. I didn't even know who that was until a couple of days ago. So my point is, he wasn't great. He was not great. So I do think that they didn't use him properly. The Dolphins, I think, play a 3-4 defense. Honestly, I don't know if that is his best role as a 3-4 standing up outside linebacker. They used him really on true pass rushing downs. And I don't know if Kyle Van Noy is going to always be that, 90% of the snaps rushing the passer. He is going to drop into coverage a lot. He allows a lot of versatility there. You can drop him into coverage. You can rush the passer. You can play him as an off-ball linebacker. There's a lot of things you can do with him. And he's not going to cost a whole lot of money. Even if he's not your number 2 edge rusher, you could bring him in and play him at an outside linebacker position because the Browns do play a 4-3 scheme. Again, number 2, I think I would be very excited about that pick. And number 3 I would say Curtis Samuel, because as much as this is my fantasy of having Curtis Samuel on the Browns roster, but unless they move Landry or Beckham, I don't see him fitting. I don't see it making it work salary cap wise. I don't see it really being a smart allocation of resources. So Curtis Samuel, I would love. I've talked about him a lot. Has that elite separation, has that elite athleticism. If it was a dream world, definitely would bring him in, but it's not a dream world, so he's my number 3 for that reason. Well, yeah, Van Noy would be as good as a 4-3 base outside linebacker in the Browns scheme. Yeah, you could definitely see that happen. I could definitely see him playing a lot of snaps there. He could play as, hand in the dirt defensive end across from Myles Garrett. You could play him at a lot of different positions. Probably would play a lot of linebacker, but yeah, I could see him, Joe Woods, having a fun time with that. Kyle Van Noy is number 2, Curtis Samuel number 3, and then number 4 is tough. I would probably say, I don't want to just use Michael Davis because I've talked about him a lot. From the Chargers, I would probably say Brian Poole. So Brian Poole is a slot corner from the Jets. He's not terribly athletic, but he is great in the slot. He is a very sturdy corner. He's very consistent. He's Terrence Mitchell, but better. He, again, doesn't have that elite athleticism, similar to Terrence Mitchell, but he does have, he does have some. He's a little bit more athletic, and he has, I would say, probably a little bit of a better awareness on the field. He has clearly better instincts, and I think he would be a great upgrade for the Browns. Wouldn't cost a ton of money. Very, very quality starter there at slot corner. So that would be an option there. Brian Poole would be my number 3, and then number 4, I would probably go Casey Hayward, because Casey Hayward has been a pretty good corner for the Chargers. And Chargers, I mean, they are pretty deep at the secondary position. Was really more of a cap casualty. I'm not in love with their decision to cut him, because I do think there would have been a little bit of a trade market, and I also think that he's also just a good player. I don't really understand the value of cutting him. The Chargers already have a ton of cap space. So, Casey Hayward, that corner class is loaded. I think you will get a value if the Browns do sign one in free agency. I do think you'll get a value signing there, and that could be a great option. Casey Hayward, you could play him on an island. You could play him opposite Ward. You'd probably be able to go into that traditional more man scheme. See what Joe Woods, he's more of a zone guy, but he could play a lot of man defense there, install that in second year of the defense. And then number 5. So number 5, I do understand that we do have a glaring hole there at linebacker, but I don't know if the value is there, because it's just linebackers very replaceable. Our linebackers were not the problem. Yes, we had some, missed tackles, but they were not. What I'm saying is that yes, they were a problem. I'm lying. They were a problem, but what they weren't is we don't need a guy like Levante David. We don't need that similar caliber player. But we do need a solid starter with some athleticism, with some quickness. And I think a guy that could bring that is KJ Wright. So I said this, and I talked about him a couple days ago. KJ Wright from the Seahawks would be an excellent fit. Again, has that coverage ability. Honestly, he's not terrible run stopper. He's been better than Bobby Wagner, who's probably a Hall of Fame linebacker this year, and for the past few years also. But KJ Wright's been better than Bobby Wagner. Yeah, KJ Wright I think would be a very solid addition. He does want to come back to Seattle, but don't know if they'll work it out there because, again, Seahawks, they drafted Jordan Brooks. They have Bobby Wagner. A lot of times, now in the NFL, nickel is the new base. It used to be 4-3 or 3-4 would be your base defense. Now a lot of the times, defenses for most of the snaps are only putting 2 linebackers on the field because it is becoming more of a passing league. So KJ Wright I would love if it's there, if it's not terribly expensive. Yeah, there's a lot of rumors about Curtis Samuel now. I'm kind of just looking for that Browns name tag. But yeah, those are my 5 ideal, in a perfect world, options there for the Browns from number 1 to 5 in order probably. But honestly, I'm trusting Andrew Berry. I know that's kind of strange to say based on what's happened. A lot of head-scratching moves, but I really think that this front office has a good sense of maximizing short-term success, but also understanding that you don't want to put yourself in a hole that you're not able to compete for the next 10 years. I mean, that's hyperbole, but my point is you don't want to mortgage your future. You want to be able to be a consistent competitor. Andrew Berry said it, Stefanski said it, even Mayfield said it. You want to be able to compete every year. So you don't want to make any moves that will potentially, you can go all in like the Saints are, but then you're kind of stuck, in purgatory for a while. So I understand the philosophy of going all in. I don't think the Browns need to do that. They could be Super Bowl contenders next year, but I think if they make some smart, educated moves, don't get all that cap space away, because you do have some guys that you are going to need to pay. Denzel Ward, Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb. There's a lot of guys you're going to have to pay. So, or you might not pay. I mean, I don't know what Nick Chubb is the deal is. Wyatt Teller. I mean, there's the guys that you're going to have to pay. So, got to see how that shakes out. I'm really surprised we haven't seen any Browns news. Let's see. So, I'm kind of surprised how slowly things have been moving. Because normally in free agency, you see a lot of high-profile guys go early, in the couple first few minutes. Jonnu Smith and David Ngakoue, I think, have been the 2 biggest signings. But again, that's not really that exciting. Gotta get some news here to talk about. I would be interested. I would be interested to see this. I would be interested if you can post a free agent that you have like an instinct or you really think is going to go somewhere to any team. I would be very interested to see if you can predict that. So if you could write, in the chat saying, you think someone will go where, I would be interested to see that prediction, see if you get it right. I always love there's this. I don't really have a ton of. Can't really tell exactly who's going where. I do think Curtis Samuel is going to the Patriots. As much as I hate to say it, I could also see him going to the Giants. I'm going to say Giants, lock it in there. Curtis Samuel to the Giants. That could be a good option. Giants would fit that scheme perfectly. See here, rumor, Cardinals team to watch for center Corey Linsley. Yeah, I have no clue why the Packers decided to extend Aaron Jones. That was a dumb move. Because this is kind of where I want to talk about Nick Chubb. So, Nick Chubb, and this is kind of a, as much as there's a lot of division among Browns fans with Nick Chubb, because Nick Chubb is a good player. He's a very, very good player. But do you pay Nick Chubb a ton of money? Because we're in the playoffs, we didn't really use a whole lot of him. Nick Chubb is an elite running back. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But do you pay him, what you're going to have to pay him, which is going to be, I would say, $15 million a year plus. Derrick Henry just got 13. Titans worked out that deal pretty much perfectly. But now, Aaron Jones is making 12. Nick Chubb's agent is going to say, well, obviously, Chubb is better than Jones, so he should get a pretty decent paycheck compared to what Aaron Jones gets. So, with that being said, do you pay Nick Chubb? I just don't see that. There we go, that slide. Nick Chubb, again, elite running back, what am I saying? He's an elite running back, but it's just, I can't explain it. Because I love Nick Chubb, I do. He has that old style running style. He has, he just puts down his shoulder, puts down his head and works. You never really hear anything about him or from him, but he plays so well on the field. He really is a good running back, but you don't pay running backs. We've seen that very clearly. You really can't pay running backs, especially that are one-dimensional, like Nick Chubb. That's a guy that's one-dimensional. Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, guys that really don't have skills in the passing game, in the receiving game. They just don't. They don't have that elite skill in the passing game. They are kind of, they're a master of one trait. When you have a guy like Nick Chubb, he can obviously run the ball very well. But you saw in the Chiefs game, dropped 2 passes, really cost the Browns a decent chance of winning that game. Because, again, 2 big drops on long downs that had a chance to really go very far down the field, and he just didn't catch them. And I'm not saying that all running backs catch everything, and if you don't catch everything, you shouldn't get paid. But he just doesn't have that elite ability to be a consistent threat out of the backfield. He is kind of that one-trait running back. He can run the ball very well. He's great at taking that cutback lane, has that ability to sidestep, has that vision that you look for in a running back. But, yeah, I just don't know. We always say, the next thing we say is, this guy is going to be the next guy to break the mold. No, this guy will break the mold. It's not really worked out. I mean, I know injury is different, but Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon just got paid. Both suffered injuries. The Panthers were fine with Mike Davis. Mike Davis is not great. They were fine with him. They were fine with him. Christian McCaffrey, I'm not saying you should keep Mike Davis over Christian McCaffrey, but my point is, the running game is more about the scheme. It's more about the scheme. Because the 49ers, take the 49ers for example. Who'd they have running the ball? Jeff Wilson. That was their guy that ran the ball a lot. Jeff Wilson got significant touches. Last year they ran what? Tevin Coleman I think was injured. Matt Breida and Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert was flying through practice squads. It seemed like every day. And Matt Breida just got traded for the Dolphins and did nothing. So my point is, I'm not saying that Nick Chubb is Matt Breida. I'm not saying that we can compare that exactly, but I think the point still stands that the running game, and the 49ers had one of the most lethal running games in the league, and they didn't even have a top-tier offensive line. That certainly helps, but I don't think it's the most important. I think it's that scheme, that ability that zone run scheme that really opens up that running game. And I know it's hard because a lot of times football is about the X's and O's. And I'm not saying Kyle Shanahan is, a dime a dozen coach. I mean, he is a special coach. He's one of the, Gary Kubiak obviously really created this zone run, kind of West Coast offense. But Kyle Shanahan really was the first guy to really have tremendous success with it. So Kyle Shanahan, not the same coach that a lot of coaches are in the NFL, but the point still stands. Running back, pretty replaceable. There's a lot of good free agents on this list that you can look at and say, hey, that wouldn't be terribly different. It wouldn't be terribly different. They're not going to be as special as Nick Chubb. No one's saying that. You've got Kenyon Drake. You've got Tevin Coleman even. Matt Breida, Mike Davis, Carlos Hyde, Leonard Fournette, Carlos Hyde. No, not Carlos Hyde. What's his name? It came from Chris Carson. That's what I'm getting confused with. There's a lot of guys that could theoretically, Le'Veon Bell, for example, those are guys that could step in and play, I would say, 75-80% of what Nick Chubb can be. Marlon Mack, who had an ACL injury, who is regarded as an emerging young star, you could probably get him for about $3 million. It's not gonna be like you let Nick Chubb go and you've got nothing. That's just not how that works. Nick Chubb, great player, honestly not worth paying $15 million a year. If he comes back on a $10 million deal, $11 million, we can talk. I just don't think in a pass-heavy league if that is the smartest decision to make. I just don't really see that being a smart allocation of resources. And yeah, that's what I have to say about Nick Chubb. Wyatt Teller, of course, is also eligible for an extension. So that's what I have to say about Nick Chubb. Definitely going to be a repeated topic throughout the offseason. Probably going to do a film breakdown on that. But yeah, Nick Chubb, big topic there. A lot of Browns guys are eligible for extensions this year. Baker Mayfield obviously being the big one, the most notable, most talked about. Nick Chubb not far behind. I think that's an interesting storyline. But yeah, right now, no big rumors at all. I mean, there's nothing. Yeah. Got Trey Hendrickson and what's his name? John Johnson. So we'll see how this shakes up. Might have to end the stream if, nobody makes any transactions because don't want to hear me kind of try to keep this stream going when there's nothing to talk about, but we'll see how it goes. If you have any questions, make sure to answer those. I know you're probably kind of waiting for those news that transactions. I am the same way, kind of getting anxious to see what happens. Just want something, free agency is always the most exciting. I love free agency. I think it's one of the most exciting times of the NFL season. Even I know the games are obviously the most exciting, but free agency, not far behind. Gotta be honest. Let's see how many people we got. See, keep fluctuating between 8 and 13, 9 right now, so pretty nice amount of people. So right now it's 1:47. So we're closing in on 4 o'clock, which is really gonna be when it really ends, and it'll continue throughout the day. But this is kind of where the bulk happens, the bulk of the transactions. Let's see, so Corey Linsley again is one of those guys. I'm seeing the Cardinals could be an option there. I would love that fit. I would love the Cardinals fit there. Cardinals desperately need an upgrade. So, see what happens there. Free agent wise, still nothing. Digging for rumors here, but still got nothing. So, Vikings Anthony Harris. So, Anthony Harris is Vikings safety, getting some rumors now, finally, that the Washington football team and the Browns are the front runners to land Anthony Harris. Okay, so finally. So, Anthony Harris is a solid safety. He was probably been the best safety. He has been the best safety since 2019. So yeah, that's definitely a plus. I would say the Browns did try to acquire him. They did try to acquire him. I believe right before in the preseason they tried to acquire him. Didn't work out. The price was a little too high. The salary was just not there. Maybe the Browns try to retry their efforts to try to land a marquee safety here. John Johnson or Anthony Harris. I would definitely prefer John Johnson. Not even going to lie, I would definitely prefer that. But could be an option if that doesn't work out. John Johnson, Anthony Harris. I'll go back there. So that's the source there. NFL rumors, generally correct. So that's exciting. Love some rumors there. Anthony Harris. So Anthony Harris is more of a true free safety. And I think then that what you're going to do is you're going to rotate Grant Delpit more into the box, which would kind of limit his ability to be that rangy free safety that I think he could be. And then you bring Ronnie Harrison to be that more cover safety. That could be a decent tandem of 3 safeties. That actually would be pretty nice. Anthony Harris football team, again, the Washington football team has a ton of cap space, I believe. So I would not want to get in a bidding war with them. Yeah, no, I'm not getting in a bidding war with the Washington football team. That is not happening. Browns will not win that one if they do getting in a bidding war. So, yeah, so right now we've got Anthony Harris, John Johnson, and what's his name? Trey Hendrickson that are the rumored free agent, rumors for the free agent class for the Browns. So, if I had to pick which one, I would probably go in order: John Johnson, Anthony Harris, Trey Hendrickson. Those are the guys I would be taking if I was the Browns. Those are the guys that, if I had to pick one, it would definitely be John Johnson, followed up by Anthony Harris, and then Trey Hendrickson. Will be very sad if the Browns do end up signing Trey Hendrickson. All right, so I'm going to give this a couple more minutes. Kind of waiting for Andrew Berry to decide to, make a move. So not a transaction. So Cowboys are interested in Falcons DeMonte KZ. That would be a decent signing for the Cowboys. That definitely needs some secondary help. They definitely need some secondary help. I don't know if paying, if you're the Cowboys, I don't know if spending a lot of draft capital to get a corner at number 10 would be the greatest idea, unless Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech falls. Otherwise, I would probably go Rashawn Slater, upgrade that offensive line, and address the secondary with some pretty decent talent here in free agency when it's not going to be terribly expensive. That's what I would do if I was the Cowboys. Let's see. So, DeMonte KZ got released from the Falcons, actually, I think, and he was pretty decent. DeMonte KZ and Ricardo Allen kind of always played similar roles with Keanu Neal, who has always been injured pretty much. Pretty injury prone. I mean, I hope he's a standard box safety. I think he's a free agent, actually. That would be interesting. Free agent Keanu Neal, I would not break the box on a guy that has pretty good, ability to play in the box, but again, very limited in coverage. Honestly, you could argue he's a liability, and I think that if you're going to spend big on a box safety, it's not going to be Keanu Neal. It's got to be John Johnson. Going to keep that John Johnson train going and rolling. Yeah, Browns taking their time. They definitely are. I don't know if that's a good thing or if we're not doing anything, because I do think something needs to happen. I do think we need some transactions. So, all right, so I think what we're going to do is we'll see how free agency rolls. I do think that there is something happening, I think, with the cap. I think this is kind of to be expected, and we're going to end the stream, and if anything does happen, I will see, if we can react to it tomorrow. Maybe later today, we'll see what happens. But thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to Dog Pound Dish. Always keep up to date with the latest Browns transactions. Get analysis, film study. It's always great. Do probably more live streams. It's definitely a fun experience. Do some interaction on the go. But yeah, I'm kind of annoyed that we're not doing anything right now for the Browns, Andrew Berry. But I really appreciate guys watching, and we'll be sure to react to anything that does happen. See if live stream maybe tomorrow. We'll see what happens. And thanks for watching. I appreciate it.